Good morning, May 25th, 2021, and we are back in the Bow Valley, which I have been gone from for 4 days or 5 days. So if you haven't heard from me, that's why. It's been a crazy weekend. Amongst the climbing community in the Bow Valley, we had a full-on drag-out bar fight on Facebook. You know, the kind I was in God, when was that? It must have been 1987. Dawson Creek. And I was working for Mustang, and the neighbor's rig moved in, a bunch of rig hands, and we just happened to get all liquored up and had opposing opinions on how to drill a well. So we got down and did some ear biting, eye gouging, and it kind of reminded me of that. Anyhow, it turns out that I think people's true colors kind of showed up, and we know a little bit more about all that glitters. Turns out not all that popular, and some of the shady stuff that went on with the thing is too, I guess there's a new Facebook page. Let's see if we can have a look at that. Where the heck did that go? Oh, with the ice climbing. The problem is that Margot Talbot was the administrator, and there was a fight started on that Canadian Rockies ice climbing page, and then what happened was, well, yeah. So she was the head administrator of that, and anytime there was something negative about her, she would delete that. And then there was almost like nothing positive, so that was all freaking. It was a pretty one-sided fight, so they moved the fight over to someplace else, and we got a lot more details about what went on. I'm not going to go into it. It's just like it's messy, and the guilty party, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't deserve the airtime. Facebook. Other than that, yeah, so I went down to southern Alberta, thinking I'm going to go mountain biking with the family, and so we rented a little cabin down there. And turns out, just as we're leaving town, the weather takes a change. Sort of knew it was going to come in, but it was like, went in 30 centimeters of snow. That's a little unusual for Rogers Pass this time of year, the end of May, but not completely unusual. So I ended up getting surprised by that. But what it did remind me is that, I used to spend some time down there in the Waterton area, which would be, let's take a little look, second display. So the Waterton area is right down in this area in southern Alberta, and Rogers Pass is where I was, or Crow's Nest Pass, was where we spent the weekend. And so if you look at Crow's Nest Pass, we will find, there's Waterton, then Twin Buttes, so that puts Pincher right here, Lumbrook Burns, and here's Rogers Pass right in here. This section in here is known as Rogers Pass. Let's put that in the center. And we're staying just outside of the town of Frank, between Frank and Blairmore. And I remember I worked down here in this district, one of my first jobs. I was 17, fresh out of school, and working for an oil exploration company. And so we would wander up into these mountains to the north. And that was one of my first jobs when I was just a youngster. So here's the town of Frank. But as I'm staying here, what I realized is what I had forgotten about was this here, the Frank Slide, which I think it was on April 29th, I believe, in 1903. This whole side of this mountain slid down into the valley and bang, and spread out here. So this is the Trans-Canada Highway now. And then we have the railroad, and then there's some other little road going in through here I didn't see about. And this is the town of Frank. And this is where we were staying, right here in this compound right in here. There's a bunch of cabins. So I got to looking over this place, you know, because it was snowing anyhow. I was like, well, let's go, you know, what else is there to do around here? And I had forgotten about the bouldering, because when we lived in Waterton, I used to come up here once in a while. Also, my parents lived in Cowley, which is just outside of Pincher Creek. And so that brought me down to southern Alberta every once in a while. Which makes you think. So those of you who are international visitors, there's Vancouver Island. We're pretty much straight across. It's right on this area in the world, right? And so you get a look at it. You know, there's your kind of the boulder field that you see. This little hiking trail going around. But there's just these big, huge blocks everywhere. And then I guess there's an explained reason for why the huge blocks are on top. And then it just kind of settles all the finer boulders and stuff are on the bottom. There's an explanation on some sign everywhere. But these boulders are like everywhere, right? And it's literally the bouldering capital of Canada, I would say. Squamish has got boulders, but nothing to this scale. So there's some conglomerate rock. So as you can see, just about everywhere you go, there's these huge rocks. Unfortunately for us, this day would be Sunday, and it was just whatever. It was miserable everywhere. We couldn't even go to Fernie, and I wasn't great. We went and traveled a couple of days to Fernie. I wasn't great about crossing the border because of the pandemic. So I try to play by the rules as best that I can. But every once in a while, things happen. Will Gadds has a oh yeah, this is kind of where the argument moved over to, but we're not going to bother with that. So how's everybody been? It's been a while, eh? Ben, no. Do I look like, I don't know who Patrick Carney is of the Black Keys. I've been called a few different names. Like, I have kind of a generic look, I think. I had a unique voice because I've had people cross, in Ottawa, 3 sections of the Mountain Equipment Co-op to come and say, hey, dude, how's it going? I'm talking to my buddy Ben right now, if anybody's wondering. There. So where were we, buddies? So yeah, southern Alberta. So I looked up into the bouldering section of this. Right, so you look at this is a slide area. Like this is freaking massive, eh? Right. Here's this parking spot right here. So if you park right here as you come, you can't miss this spot. It's just before the town of Frank. The town of Frank used to be right here somewhere. But for obvious reasons, they relocated it. And if you go across, right in here are some of the more massive boulders, like some really huge mothers. And then I saw some guys, even on the poor days, the poor climbing conditions, because there was still snow on the ground. It was chilly in the morning. There were people coming out from Calgary. Now, apparently, they have something like within this area, not just this area, but in the valley itself, there's something like 2,000 bouldering routes, which I think is a massive number. And maybe they're not all good, but even if 500 of them were kind of classic bouldering lines, it would make somebody who's into that sport a worthy trophy. I didn't even see this area. There's another pull out here. Looks like there's some trails going in, and then some large boulders over here, large boulders over here. All of these areas are mapped. So each place has a distinctive area, and then making it easier for you to find what you're looking for. So Emerald Lake Mini Guide, Southern Alberta Guide, local climbing routes, bouldering in Frank. Yeah, so I found this on Mountain Project, but you can also find the same thing on the Southern Alberta Bouldering Association. Oh, dude, chill and purr. You want to visit Canada, man. It's like the nicest. We're so nice. We get each other's sugar diabetes. We are so nice. I don't have anything for how nice we are, really. Chill and purr. If you're a climber, definitely you want to come down here. So this is the bouldering. This is where the roadside pullout and the big boulders are in here. Saw a bunch of boulders on this stuff over here that day. And they've cordoned these off all into sections. They tend to want you to stay away from this section here because there's the interpretive trail and the lookout for the thing. And they just want to stay in good standing with the park or National Heritage Site people. So if you don't go there, it's no big deal. And they're saying not all that much is there, but there's plenty of problems right in here. I think for a first-time visitor, I would go with this D section right here, or this section right in A here, and you'd have more than enough time for like a half a dozen trips, and there would be more than enough problems for you to deal with. But they have the stuff below the highway too is also mapped out. This line represents the railroad track where this is in here. So yeah. Now, I'm not typically a boulderer myself, right? I used to make fun of the guys that bouldering. I don't know why, just because they're different. And there's actually, if you want more information, you can get all the maps and more detailed descriptions of the stuff from the Southern Alberta Bouldering Association. Now, there was this guy down there. I tried to get hold of him. I wanted to do an interview with him because he's Trent Hoover, and he's been working on a guidebook during the pandemic. I don't know how that's going for him, but it sounds like it's going to be coming out. And then he wants to pair it up because the boulders are so out there in the middle of this huge, like 1.5 kilometers wide by like 3 kilometers long area of just massive rocks. They're kind of hard to find them, and so he wants to pair it up with a GPS app, which I think makes great sense. That way you can just look at the guidebook, clip into the GPS app, and then walk straight to the boulder or hop along the tops of the boulders. But when I was there was the some kids are there. Well, I call anybody's 40 or under, I call kids, but they were working their way through this boulder field down on a day, even on a day like this. And you can see some of these great big mothers, like over here, and this one over here is quite distinctive. This one, when you look at it up close, looks sorta like this. No, is this it? Yeah. And there's quite a few problems underneath. You can see that they've done a lot of work. A lot of the landings on the things are not great, but some of these ones, and this is the one where I suggested that you go to first. They've done quite a bit of work here, and they've got some pretty decent landings. You can find anything from V2 to V12 in this area. And I'm guessing V12 means very hard. There's some highballing going on here. Some of these things are so long that they actually have rock roots on them. So this is about, I don't know, 20 feet high or 30 feet high. And this one overhanging in here, there's, what I'm guessing is like 12 BC or something. 10A-ish. And another route that goes in here, sort of 5'9", 10A-ish. And over to the back of there, as you can see. So yeah, some pretty cool rock piles. I have more of a history with that. My wife was in Waterton, or worked in Waterton, ran the public safety program, because the guy that was there, Brent, had hip problems and couldn't do the public safety stuff anymore, so they had to get somebody to replace him. And so she came in out of Sunwapta National Park and took over. Yeah, check that out, eh? Doo-doo-doo. Yeah, baby. So if you're wondering, so I have a bit of history down there myself, personally. Oh, this is it. Right. There's a lot of other stuff down there though too, eh? There's some actual some rock climbing I found. Local climbing routes, Rock Climbing Guide to Southern Alberta by Chris Noble. And Noble put this book out, has to be quite some time ago. It has to be at least 16 years ago or something, 17 years ago. And it's just a small guide for the area, but it included a lot of stuff that was in the Waterton and surrounding area. The former public safety dude did not like rock climbing in his park in Waterton and highly discouraged it. I don't think he had any say over it per se, but he did actively keep out anybody from getting a mountain guiding license in the park. So when my wife moved down there, there wasn't really any place for me to work. It's either shoveling barns or ski patrolling at Castle, which was like an hour away, which wasn't very practical for me as a job. But we did I did enjoy the time that we did spend down there. So, yeah, so you can find this book now for free. There's a PDF version on the Southern, what is it? Oh, that's on Dropbox. Local climbing routes, Southern Alberta Alpine Club.ca. So Southern Alberta Alpine Club. All you have to do is punch that in, and you can find if you're in Southern Alberta, it's worth your time. There's a few routes on the Bears Hump that were really good. When I got there, I'd climbed, 3 or 4 of these routes, and they're whatever 4 or 5 pitch, multi-pitch routes on pretty good quality limestone, more of a dolomite limestone. Drywood, no. That Drywood is the gas plant halfway between Waterton and Pincher Creek, and behind the gas plant, there's a number of good climbing areas. As you can see, right, the upper tier, Ram's Head and Flatface are visible. Yeah, so Southern Alberta, man. I would check it out. Not a lot going on in the Bow Valley region these days. We're still waiting for the weather. It looks like it's going to make a trend to be getting better pretty soon. My boyfriend, Jay Natch, my boyfriend wants nothing more in life than to wave to you. Sunwapta National Park, check it out. Yeah, Ben, remember that? Those days? The skiing up A3 and stuff like that. That would seem so carefree in those days, eh? That was a while ago. Chillin' per Jay Nash, I want to do that. Yeah, have I been to Europe to climbing? I spent a winter in Spain, if you can believe it, climbing. And that's when Avon made her debut in the climbing world. Or on the, where did she go? Yeah, so we spent an entire winter in Spain, about 5 months, and then spent a bit of time in Fontainebleau, and then went over to Britain. But we didn't do any climbing in Britain. We were just visiting relatives. And that's when I find out that they still have medieval torture in Britain. So I went in, like I climbed all winter in Spain, and I was going to be like, oh yeah, man, I am freaking honed. I am going to kill it. You know, and I was cranking. And then we ended up, we'd go to visit my wife's relatives in Britain, Bedford, just out of London, north of London, I guess. And we find out we can't change. We were just going to spend a few days. We couldn't change our plane ticket, so we had to wait like 2.5 weeks or something like that. And meanwhile, they have this thing that's called death by dinner. And so one relative takes you, stuffs you full of food, and then they pass you off to the next relative. And then that relative stuffs you full of food, and then they pass you off to the next relative. So by the time I got out of Britain, man, I could, you know, I was back to being like a 5'6" bunny again. But yeah. And Fontainebleau was interesting, and that's kind of where was my, well, I wouldn't say my introduction to bouldering, because I'd been bouldering before. I had a picture of from a bunch of stuff from Spain. But I do not know where it is. Here you go, guys. Anybody? I'll give you one guess where that is. J Notch, 2022. Yeah, I would think, 2022, once this COVID thing is over. Fontainebleau is, I have a buddy, Andy Shaw, who's been there like 5 or 6 times, and he wants to go again. And it's like, man, you know, it's such a big world. Do you really want to go back to Fontainebleau again? But he digs it, right? I guess it's the wine, the combination of the climbing and everything else. This is the last pitch to the summit of El Pamayo, if you're wondering. Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. This is the just getting off we did up a new route on Ball Mountain. We actually got credited with it. It's hard to believe, a south-facing glacier. You don't see that very much. We'll report how it was. I have never been there. Well, and J Natch, I think you're gonna like it. You know I did. Although I was kind of burnt out from Europe, I was pretty ready to come home by the time that happened. You can see why girls hockey is my favorite sport. You know? Do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Darn, man. How to even, want me to show you my nuts? Here you go. Oh, man. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, this is Andy Shaw. This is the guy that loves Fontainebleau, man. That's a Fontainebleau. And we're on a route called Hydrophobia.
Are you getting pumped yet, Joe?
Yeah, thinking about it, I'm pumped.
Let me know when you're being, I'll pop you off soon. When you're happy camper.
Okay.
into it.
So I can tell you right now, I was pretty nervous on this pitch. This was like my third climb of the season, and the other two were like some grade 3 little things. Meanwhile, now we're on this like grade 5 plus unclimbed. It's 20 below. Doesn't look like it, but it is. And I'm wearing the wrong crampons. I'm wearing alpine crampons instead of ice climbing crampons. And, hey, looking at it, I kind of like holding it together, no matter how scared I am. That's the thing about ice climbing, though, too. You never know how close you are to falling off. And it doesn't matter how scared you are. You can, you still got to hang on and keep your shit together, right? You can't afford to fucking fall, not on ice climbing. People do it these days, though. Look at that's our packs down there.
How was that? It was funky. I thought. Maybe the exposure irritated. And it was sweet. I don't want to fucking go to the sun. I think I'm going to Mexico next week. Just because of this. There's pitch hydrophobia. I'll step it up with nice.
We're with Paul, one of the heads of research and development for
Are you getting pumped yet, Joe?
yeah, thinking about it. I'm pumped. Research and development for Arc'teryx. Everybody's heard of Arc'teryx, ain't you? Interesting. Hydrophobia, extreme or irrational fear of water, especially as a symptom of rabies in humans. Hydrophobia. Well, it came from hydrophobia came from when the first ascent, the guys were climbing it, and it broke a ice dam up top, broke and sprayed the guys full of water. Hydrophobia, and they hypothermia, and they got hypothermia, and somehow they made hydrophobia out of that. But that was pretty good. I think that was like one of the last really big, harder climbs that I've done. You know, I've kind of gotten out of the age of I need the adrenaline rush.
Did you enjoy that pitch?
Huh? Fucking nanny? Do this.
Well, where did Spain go? I do not know. But anyhow, yeah, I haven't climbed a lot outside of other countries that I've climbed quite a bit in is Peru, Argentina, a little bit in Chile, Ecuador, one trip, but I guided a trip down there. We did a bunch of stuff and then ended up hiring a boat or we flew out to Ecuador. Or no, Ecuador. Galapagos, that zoo. And then we went. Yeah, we're on the subject of ice climbing. Well, not really. There's a pretty cool climb, hey? I don't think this is John Price's photo. I hope not, because then I'll just get in all kinds of trouble with the whole climbing community. Remember when I climbed this, we kind of went up here and set up into here and then did this up there. And Jeff Thornton Trump, I believe I climbed that with. This is my wife climbing out with one of her cohorts. I think Ian Jackson, which is one of her colleagues at work. Yeah, so I don't know. As far as climbing, I'd love to go and back to Europe again. I think I will. Whenever the opportunity arises. So there's Avon way back then. And Avon way back now. Where's Avon? So you guys remember her when she was, she first made her appearance on this channel when she was like 6 months old in Spain. And then there she is now down in Crow's Nest Pass. She boulders and climbs. Darn, I was just looking at that photo in Spain too. Some photos. So if you wonder what I used to do before I was guiding, there was me on my rig tanks. Kind of liked that job. I liked working derrick. And that was on this rig here, which I believe it's got precision colors on it. And this is a jackknife double. Then I went to work on one of their triples after I was done with this one. This is me in the Arctic. We had there's a mountain over here, this mountain that I'm standing on, and right back here is where I saw a herd of caribou go through the ice. Down further across here, about 20 or 30 miles, is Paktiaktak, which I was at just a little while ago. Darn, man, darn. Well, there it is. So this is in Spain, and this right here, we put a cam in the ceiling of this cave. She doesn't get hit by rockfall. And this is Avon bouncing around. So this is where her first appearance occurred in the Mike Barter channel. And this is my wife and I. So we spent 6 months in Spain rock climbing, which was wonderful. I'd definitely go back to Spain again. This is a dangerous job. Rigs in those days, J-notch, were freaking dangerous for sure by today's standards. I think most rigs now have iron roughnecks, which are just these machines that wheel all the piping and stuff together. But back in the day, we used to have to spin chain and work the with the spinning chain as a motorman is freaking dangerous. How many arms are broken on that thing? And they're not very, very nice brakes either. Because your arm goes and wraps right around the thing that the motor's, so there's all kinds of things that can happen. The tail can wrap into your wrist, pull you into the chain, it just rips your arm right off. All kinds of stuff that happens back in those days. I don't miss work. Well, in some ways I miss working rigs. Kind of like the teamwork. Like a really good team worked really well together. There was that camaraderie that went with that. Just Riley, doing good, buddy. How you doing? Hey, do you guys see the chat line? I guess you guys see each other's. You need more pictures. You know, I do have a whole thing on Spain somewhere, you know, and it's just because I'm in the process of cleaning up because I just moved the computer. I got the Mac M1, new Mac Mini with the M1 chip, and I'm using that and I'm moving and migrating all my photos and stuff onto it. Just made me realize that all my stuff is all over the place. Sunshine Ski Patrol always had the hottest girls. Do 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 do. Yeah, and this is when we linked up did our link, climbed 2 routes in a day. The funnel and something else, I forget what it was. Rescue stuff. This is my wife's photos. I can't really show those because I never know what's okay and not okay to show with the Parks Canada stuff. Some of it's private. Anyhow, so for the Bow Valley, hey, you guys know Mark Ledwidge? Never looked so good. Crummy Heller. Anyhow, Southern Alberta dudes, check it out. Good. Yeah, I was just wondering if you guys catch that. And well, I hope we don't get another year. This winter's been holding off for holding on forever, and I suspect that we're gonna get one of these because so much snow left in the mountains, and it's getting so late in the season that we might have another flood season. Like 2013, which, if you look at it, this is what the place looked like. Oh my God, eh? How was this? Downtown Banff. That's Bow Falls. So the whole parking lot and everything is all flooded. Massive amount of water. This must have been a lot of erosion caused in that area. It wouldn't be noticeable. I mean, I'm sure there's floods before over the eons, but this is the largest in my memory, for sure, by a long shot. So you can see it comes right up into the park, downtown, across to the Buffalo. Yeah, I haven't seen the river swelled like that in quite a while. Well, it's 2013. We always get a threat of... Yeah, this is early season. Bow Falls at its finest. Wouldn't it be, guys run that when it's in flood condition, run it with a kayak? Not very often, but once in a while. You know, but I don't think you'd be running it with a kayak. Well, I don't know. Man, freaking kayak, some of these guys are so good, eh? Speaking of which, I got my daughter into kayaking class again. Avon is probably one of the most, for her age, is probably one of the most well-rounded outdoors people in anywhere in freaking world, I think. Well, you grow up going to Spain, you spend 6 months in Spain when you're 6 months old, and then it has never stopped. But we get her into all kinds of activities as much as we can. So I think paddling is like a pretty cool sport, especially if you know how to do it properly. Look at that river, eh? Normally the river, you guys, is like goes from here to about here, sort of thing, and it's really shallow. Never in a flood condition like that, though. There's our bridge. You'd be surprised at how much of that. Anyhow, reunification easily. Yeah, Riley, sure would, buddy. I'm wondering. Now, these Google backups, eh? They're just awesome. All the stuff that I probably would have lost, I still have. Oh, this is when I was building that route. Real resistance. Reminiscing through life. Mackay Ledges on Mount Lefroy. That's a pretty cool route. I should do a whole section on that route, man. Get up there and the scenery is just incredible. This is coming over from Yoho to Lake Louise. And there's a lead system on Lefroy. Furman tried to claim the name for it, but we all know it's called the Mackay Ledges. And this is a young family. This lady here was the first person that I got off the internet as a customer. Juan, hey, congrats from Patagonia. Hey, buddy. How's Patagonia? Are you guys in your climbing season right now? Juan, I haven't been into Patagonia itself, so like that. I was just climbed some stuff on the border, Patagonia, Argentinian border. And another close place I got was Frey in the Bariloche district, which is like a little mini Bugaboos type of thing. That kind of rock and a bunch of towers and stuff like that. Yeah, it's this lady. She was, and then this is like 20 years later. I'm thinking, yeah, 25 years later, she came back with her kids, and I took them across the ledges. So this is the Death Trap. This is Mount Victoria. This is Mount Lefroy on this side. Abbott's Hut. And this hut is now closed permanently because you see where this ice is in here? This was an ice core moraine. And the moraine eventually just melted away to the point that the hut isn't on stable foundations anymore. So they had to move this. Great kids. They were a really fun family. Yeah, she did a great job of raising those kids. And this is what the ledge system looks like. And so these cables, they came from down in the valley. There was like these stupid cables that were along the trail up to the tea house. So we moved these cables to where they needed and put in a bunch of bolts along here. So any place that's really kind of exposed, this is the most exposed area here. We replaced with these steel cables and some bolts. So you can see it's just beautiful up there. Fortunately, it reminds me, I gotta get a hold of a dude that wants to go back up there and play his bagpipes on the summit of Mount Victoria. So anyhow, guys, I'm going to try and put something together for tomorrow, hopefully, and we can chat some more. It's getting to the time of season we're changing seasons, so rock climbing is starting to show up a little bit if this weather ever gets any better. Well, it doesn't seem to matter. The crags around here, I've seen lots of climbers show up, or showing up. Mm-hmm. Do. It's my wife and her horse religion. She every year goes on her pilgrimage with her horses out into the national parks. Sometimes they all return, sometimes they get cut in half. Hard to say. Anyhow, folks, I am going to probably let you guys go. Not much of a show today, but I thought I'd just kind of check in, see what's going on, and then talked about the big bar fight that we had in Facebook the other day. I think that was fairly conclusive. Sometimes you got to throw so much fuel on a fire that it just burns itself out, and I think that's what happened with that Facebook on the Canadian Rockies ice thing. It got to turn out to see what the true colors were of the individuals. Oh, chill and purr. In case you missed it, did I talk about the tragedy of Lama, Aur, and Russ Kelly in Canada? That would be on the House Peak incident. That's an interesting one, actually. Because I believe, don't quote me, but the conditions that they climbed in, it had changed dramatically overnight. And then so they, were going in with one forecast and came out with another forecast. From what I understand, they climbed that thing in an incredibly fast time, like 4 hours or something. It would take me 4 days to climb that route. And but I haven't really done a specific thing on that accident. The problem is I just have so much inside information on that stuff that doesn't belong to Parks Canada, and I have to be careful about what I say. Apparently, that I don't reveal information that is privileged information, and I really don't know if I want to talk about or drag up these incidents of death. And it's kind of a negative thing, but there's also a lot to learn about. From these accidents too. It's like Will Gadd wrote an article. You can find it in Explorer magazine, and I put a link in the show notes. And basically it's to my mountain guests. So he's addressing as a guide to his guests that, he can't guarantee 100% that you're going to be safe 100% of the time, that the mountains don't know that we're experts, and that there's a human factor that gets in the way all the time. So when he lays out a few things, thinking of hiring me? Damn, you're brave. Okay, here are some of the notes on how we might approach our time in the mountains together. So basically he has a whole bunch of information that kind of informs you that he has no control over the end result. I mean, he can only make the best decisions possible, and that's, I think, what any guide can do. The problem a lot of times is guides get caught up unintentionally. Your ego can get caught up to things. You can miss stuff, which is a possibility. And then sometimes there's things like the Carl Nagy accident, where this rock is just sitting in this place for probably 100,000 years, and it just let loose that day, and it happened to be right there where Carl was, and he takes it in the head, and it's a fatality, right? And in a place that I'd climbed many times before, I'd taken guests up, and it's pretty relatively benign, especially for rockfall. There's other problems there, but so that was fine. And his one thing too is like his primary rules. Rule number one is my primary goal is to get back at the end of the day with you. Add the with you. I think that's every guide's primary goal, or it should be anyhow. I do remember Kitty going to me, when we were climbing in Mexico, I ran into Kitty Calhoun and we were sitting there chatting. She goes, Joe, not every clown has the right to get to the sun. She talks like that. And I go, yeah, Kitty, nobody, who said they do, right? I mean, you only can do the best that you can, but if conditions aren't right and they're not in condition or whatever the thing is, your main job is just to get them home in one piece. He has a number. We're in this together literally. Well, I possibly had more days out. I routinely miss things to make errors you might catch. If you see things, talk about it. Say something. Fuck yeah, man. Like really, just your guide does not have, 360-degree radar around him. So don't feel if your spidey sense is tingling even a little, then please speak up. That's fucking great advice. He'll ask you for your goals and risk perspective so that we're aligned and we choose appropriate objectives together. This is pretty good. I remember Kathy Gardner. She's a friend of mine. I had a crush on her. And I ended up taking her up directissima on Yamnuska back when I could barely, figure out multi-pitch climbing. And it was way above her head. I got lost. And I mean, I think I terrorized her somewhat. And probably pushed her off of climbing. And I did that quite a bit when I was young, before I was guiding. I would just pick objectives I wanted to do, and I'd grab any old Tom, Dick, and Harry, and let's go, dude. And I thought as long as I could get them to belay me, I didn't even care if they belayed me correctly. I would off I would go. So avalanche, lightning, rockfall, bears, falling trees. It's a long list, so I'll stick to the immediate hazards and how we'll mitigate them. Most of the time, I won't go super deep into these hazards, but I'll say something like, we're going into avalanche terrain as discussed. I think it's reasonable, or I wouldn't go, but I don't want to be on this climb after 2 o'clock when the sun hits it. So we'll be down by then. Thoughts? Setting boundaries like that for yourself, like turnaround times and things, are mandatory for me. I absolutely set a pretty strict turnaround time, and unless we're like 10 minutes from the summit or 15 minutes from the summit, I usually will stick to that. It doesn't always go well with the clients and stuff like that, but there's usually a reason for those turnaround times, and quite often it's like what he's mentioning here is if I lose the snow, like late day snow, that can be hazardous for us both, for both of us. And the other thing too is what the clients want and what they think they want are quite often two different things, right? So this is especially true in the avalanche industry, where you get these type A individuals who are used to getting whatever they want because they're surrounded by yes people in their real life. They say they want to go down here and ski this line. And the reality is what they really want is to go home at the end of the week. And so when I don't know how many times I got, something like, hey, Han, let's go here. Hey, Hans took me here last year. And I was like, yeah, well, Hans is dead now. I'm here and we're going to go over there, The thing is, last year was last year. Every snowpack is different. Every year is different. And conditions are different. And my risk tolerance is different than Hans's sometimes. So I have a very low risk tolerance with my clients. I try to stay very much into the green to gray on the greenish side of the gray line and stay away from the black if at all possible. He builds his days around you. Having your best day means both you and I are honest about our skills, fitness, risk perspectives, and stoke. If I don't think I can give you a really good day and our risk tolerances are fundamentally different, I'll happily recommend other guides, as I often do. What you say to me is confidential. That is pretty good advice too. I don't know, I could have used something like this guidelines when I was starting out. This would be a good thing. I'm actually going to put this article on my wife's webpage, right on the very front page, asking clients to read this before they go any farther. When guides fall or get avalanche, and I know many who have, they often need help from you. So I need you to be able to initiate a rescue if I get hurt. That does happen, you guys. Tends to be, you know, like if I tend to take the most risk. So if I'm skiing and I ski a line and I ask you, okay, I'm going to ski, you know, the very far right hand where it's quite a bit steeper. I'm not just taking that steeper line because I want, you know, the best set of tracks. I'm taking that steeper line because that's on the gray side of what I feel that we can take as much risk as we can take today. And then I'm asking you to ski to the left of my tracks, you know, just as an example. And where it slowly gets, you know, not near as much risk because the angle is slightly lower or something. And then every once in a while, I get some client that has to ski on the right side of my track because he, for whatever reason, thinks that he can just do whatever the fuck he wants. You have to nip that right in the bud right away. So the clients generally will end up skiing green runs for the rest of the day, and they're asking why we're not going into some of the steeper terrain. Says if I can't manage the group and the group safety because of one individual, then I'm going to have to tailor down the lines and the stuff that we're going to be skiing on. Usually it's best, I find, if I just let the group manage that guest. That guest will kind of just look at me and just blow me off as if I was just another overpaid ski patroller. So if I can get the guests to manage that, and the guests will put them in right because that individual wrecked their day, that probably works out better and easier for me. And anyhow, that's been my way of managing those individuals. Your philosophy matters. Let's talk about how you view the mountains in life and build the best day that we can around what we can do together. If the above makes sense, I'm looking forward to getting out with you and have the best day we possibly can. Let's talk, figure out a great day, get fired up for the amazing places we can go, and come home from the trip together. That's pretty good advice. I've also too had times where, you know, I've had individuals hey, I want to learn to do, you know, mountaineering and stuff, and they want to learn how to divide the rope and do all this stuff. They didn't really want that though. And when you start figuring out, well, there's the peak, we want to go there. Yeah, but you want to learn how to go there on your own. It wasn't, you know, so it was miscommunication on my side, miscommunication on their side. That's happened a few times, but so this article originally appeared in the spring 2021 issue, Gadds Truth, page 22. I think that would be pretty good read for most people. Most guides probably wouldn't hurt for them to read it, and all clients. Probably took, you know, a bit for Will to pen that out and put it out there. It's all pretty well thought out. Pretty much like anything Will Gadd writes is pretty articulate and pretty well done. So I'll leave you with that thought. You can find in the show notes the Explorer magazine article on this. It's worth the read. You can check out Will Gadd's site. I don't know if the Canadian Rockies ice climbing page is going to be around for too much longer. The Facebook page, a lot of people are migrating over to the new Facebook page, Rockies Ice and Mixed Conditions, right here. just because of Margot Talbot's mismanagement and interference. And when a debate went on, she, as administrator, took and deleted anything online. So I would suggest this is kind of where the things are going to move. This is mitigated or administrated by Raf Andronowski, who is a pretty well-known and well-respected climber in this area, and a good friend of Will Gadds and many other climbers. So in the last, since Monday, this group has taken on 522 members. It'll probably take on a lot more as the main players that are moving over to here, locals anyhow, which are the locals are the ones that are doing about 98% of the posting, and they're mitigating away from the Canadian Rockies Ice Climbing page over to Rockies Ice in mixed conditions, which is what I suggest that you do. So, take care, guys, and we will talk to you soon. Hasta luego. I got to go start my day, get my kid to school, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, Jay Notch, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Chillin' Purr, Riley, buddy, hasta luego. Ben, you're steady. Good old Sunwapta National Park. Alrighty, and I enjoyed the day, guys.